afternoon. I'm Mindy Wright, a member of the CMC Board of Trustees and Assistant Provost at The Ohio State University. It's great to see everybody here today. Today's forum, Renewing Respect, Skilled Trades in High Demand, is brought to us with support from Honda of America Manufacturing, represented here today by several of their associates. Please help me in thanking them. Our panelists and hosts today are on the front lines of the job situation in our region. Please welcome the Superintendent of Tri-Rivers Career Center, Charles A. Spielman, Secretary Treasurer of the Ohio State Building and Construction Trades Council, Dennis Duffy, Director of Human Resources and Recruitment at the Wexner Medical Center, Karen Breyer, and today's host and moderator, the President and CEO of the Columbus Chamber of Commerce, Michael Dalby. We will begin today's forum with an overview of how things have changed for the middle class, our economy in regards to jobs, income, and the education required for these jobs. So please help me welcome futurist, marketing expert, and best-selling author, Roger Blackwell. The podium's yours.
Thank you very much. The commencement season is just over, but some of the speeches were noteworthy this last season. In fact, the new Business Week has the comments of Tim Cook at Apple and contrasted with what Steve Jobs said at a commencement speech 10 years earlier. And today we're very concerned about millennials, and we know that they're not interested in making money so much, they're just interested in having the good life and being a good balance in work. But I thought the quote by Tim Cook was relevant today. He says, "Our challenge is to find work that pays the rent, puts food on the table, and then lets you do what is right and good and just." And of course, those include the jobs that are our topic today. I couldn't help but notice also that one of the other quotes was by former President Bush. I actually happened to be at that graduation and heard him give this talk. Maybe you saw it on TV. He said, "To those of you who are graduating this afternoon with high honors, awards, and distinctions, I say, well done. And for those of you who I like to see as C students, you too can be president." So vocational education doesn't always have to be for the academic elite if you want to be president, apparently. Now, we are very fortunate here in Columbus to have a number of career colleges, vocational colleges, post-secondary vocational schools, and I've seen and actually worked with you, and we're very fortunate to have you actually teach jobs. I'm afraid I'm not giving it up. Worked on the farm. Now it's 2%. And now we have the same thing happening in manufacturing, of course. And it's why people go to vocational schools. Sometimes they're collegiate schools. In fact, we have the Columbus College of Art and Design here in Columbus, one of the finest ones. And as I was doing my research, I did find an article about art students. The article was, "New study says art school students have more sex." I never knew that. 10 times more than engineering majors, it says. So there's more than just money in choosing a major. But there's some good news, too. What's happening to poverty in the world today? Well, the most recent study shows that since 1960, China's real income per person has gone up 8-fold. And it is very close to getting to what it is in the US today. Brazil's has increased by 5 times, India's by 4. There are half as many poor people in the world today as there were in 1990. That's good news. The 3 major problems that we're kind of focused on today are poverty and unemployment and inequality. And those issues will probably be very important in future political discussions. And the good news in the U.S. is that poverty has decreased substantially. We put some copies of some data there's 2 or 3, I think, at each table so that you can share them whenever possible. And one of the reasons we're so concerned in poverty is the vocational schools who get people out of poverty. I think I can say with confidence that not a single person living in this country needs to be in poverty if they have a degree from a post-secondary vocational school. I think that's a reasonable thing. Nobody has to be poor. The best book on poverty and why some people are poor and others are not is by, I always have a problem, Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duflo. Now, Esther Duflo is easier to see. How many people take the Wall Street Journal? Wall Street Journal last Saturday had a whole article on randomnistas. That is, randomized field trials to find out why people are poor and how to change their behavior so they no longer are poor. You can't just tell people, here's more money, and they'll not be poor. That doesn't happen. But if you know behavioral economics, you can change them. And one of the ways is to change them into these outstanding schools, which takes them out of poverty. When I talked about outstanding schools, we have an outstanding school right here in Columbus called Ohio State, the Ohio State School of Cosmetology. And I mention that because we have several of their executives here. Does a hairdresser make much money? Well, I guarantee you they're not in poverty. They're probably going to start at $27,000 to $40,000 in that area. But I have a list of people who make over $100,000 a year without a college degree. And that would include cosmetologists. There are ones right here in Columbus who are making $150,000 or more a year. I know of one specifically making $182,000 last year. And she graduated from Ohio State School of Cosmetology, which also owns the Salon School Group. People own Nationwide Beauty Academy. Could a vocational school graduate really make a lot of money? Well, I won't mention any last names, but the first names of a couple of graduates of Nationwide Beauty Academy that I think do pretty well. One of them's named Kenneth, and the other's named Charles. I suspect we have a few customers of them. And right here in this room 2 weeks ago, we honored a vocational graduate as one of the legacy people. He graduated from what school? The Culinary Institute of America. And I suspect he makes as much money as probably anybody in this room, frankly. Don't think of vocational schools as not having exceptional vocational. Yes, they'll take people out of poverty, but they also prepare people for exceptional careers in many cases. If you look at the statistics and the data, we know that poverty is being dramatically decreased around the world. In the U.S., that's really happened true. The president's economic report from last year shows that poverty has gone from 24% down to 15% in the U.S. It's declined for almost every group. The 2 groups where it's gone down the most are people over 65. I think that's good news. And also for African Americans. Now, those are both redistribution of income rather than diversion and diffusion of higher incomes. That's redistribution of high-income people to low-income people. But both groups have dropped by 30 percentage points just in the last few decades. You might say, well, have we gotten rid of unemployment? No. What's the unemployment rate in the U.S. today? People say 5.5%. Actually, it's 38% of all adults over 18. That assumes people over 18 are adults. There's some questions on some of those. And they won't be buying cigarettes in Upper Arlington, even if they are. No, I better not go there. But the reality is that we don't need certain types of workers anymore in any of the rich countries of the world. And those workers, there's an excellent study by Sue and Jamovich that shows that even during recessions, jobs with non-routine skills, both cognitive and physical, are increasing in number. Even during a recession, they go up. And the average salary that they get is going up. Non-routine work. Cognitive non-routine work would be what has happened to accountants. But routine work has gone down. Do we have any accountants here? Some of their work is routine. As a consequence, we have gone from 92 accountants per billion of revenues in major corporations down to 70-something. Anything that has routine work will go down. But if it takes some skill, plumbers, electricians, whatever, that's non-routine work, that will go up in both income and number of jobs. But for people with routine skills, it's estimated, one study shows 47% of those jobs will be gone within 20 years. So if you know anybody who has a high school degree or less, they will be in what's called min sheds. If you read this article in the Wall Street Journal, and this is happening even more in Australia than the US and UK and all around the world, men used to get good jobs because of upper body strength, and men had an advantage over women. Well, that was in factories, and 30, 40 years ago, 30% of all non-farm jobs were in factories. Today, that's 8% and going on down to maybe 2%, just like agriculture. Now, we produce, why? Are we closing all our factories in the US? No, output in factories has doubled since 1990. Don't let any politician or anybody ever say, well, we're not making things in this country because we're sending our factories to other countries. That is not true. But those other countries have lower labor. So what do we have to do? We have to take the labor content out. And that's exactly what's happened. In any job that requires upper body strength that's going to remain has to also have upper head strength. Now, in upper body strength, men had a natural advantage. In upper heads, no, I don't want to say that, but it's probably true. What is happening, of course, is a lot of people say, well, it's the economy. Have you ever heard anybody blaming things on the economy lately? Those people do not know what they're talking about. Oh, yeah, a recession accelerates it. There's a book by Stiglitz who totally blames everything on the recession. He's wrong. The changes are structural, not fluctual. And if you look at the actual place in the U.S. where probably the economy is the best of all, it'd probably be Silicon Valley, wouldn't it? What's the average wage of a worker in Silicon Valley? Maybe you saw on TV this morning, this high school student has a summer internship at Apple. I think it was Apple, might have been Google. $100,000 for the summer internship. Why? Because he knows how to code. If you ever hear of some unemployed person saying, I can't find a job, first tell them go to any shopping area, and you'll see signs everywhere. But ask him or her, do you know how to code? Because a high school student get a $100,000 summer intern if they code, if they know how to code. And he's an exceptional one, of course. If you look at the actual numbers in Silicon Valley, highly skilled workers average, but these are not necessarily college degrees, it could be high school, $119,000. But unskilled workers, even where the economy is the best in this country, is $27,000. That's the why some people earn a lot and other people don't. Well, if you're not getting that in high school, where are you going to get it? And that's my fellow panelists. That's their job to tell us where we can get it, whether it's in apprenticeships or whether it's in colleges. There are 5 million jobs unfilled in the U.S. today. 5 million. If you know anybody who's unemployed, say, just go out. I work with employers all the time, and their biggest problem today, or one of the biggest problems is, I can't find anybody to go to work that's qualified to go to work. And that's the key, is qualified. And those are the jobs that will be expanding very rapidly. Now, that will not solve the inequality problem. It will solve the poverty problem. It will solve the poverty problem. It will solve the unemployment problem. It will not solve the inequality. What is middle class? Well, statistically, there's no complete definition that's got agreement everywhere, but statistically, the Census Bureau says it is this middle 60% around the median, which currently in the U.S. is 20,600 to 122,000. Now, that varies a lot. That varies a lot. And my mission these days is to help people who are making 25 to 50,000 make 100 to 150,000. And if they go to the right school. Now, college graduates, on average, make more than high school graduates, about $1 million during their lifetime. But the return on investment may be lower. Why? Because if you go to college for 4 years, how many here have sons or daughters that are pre-college years? May I see your hands? Okay. If you go to private school, the average last year was $42,000 a year per year for 4-year programs. Although some students cram a 4-year program into 5 or 6. But in-state public institutions, it's $19,000. But they forego 4 million or 4 years and maybe 2 or 3 or more years if they get graduate degrees, or even more years of income. Whereas if you go to a vocational school, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, and probably not $42,000 a year. If you look at the lost income plus all the interest is accruing on debts for 4 years, the return on investment, the studies show, is higher in a vocational school than most collegiate educations. Return on investment. And there's a chart in here that shows it. But I'll be the first to tell you that the data are not very good because the government has degree things for income, college, 2-year. They don't have vocational schools because there's so much diversity in what that means that you probably can't get data. Inequality, higher and higher and higher. Piketty had this best-selling book last year and said it's return on capital. He's absolutely wrong, and what I love is he finally admitted it. It's not return on capital that makes more people unequal. It is return on labor. And it doesn't matter whether you're talking about factory workers or professors. What does the average professor make in the U.S.? How many professors do we have? Do we have any professors? Go ahead and admit it. The average professor in the U.S. made $117,000 last year. That's average. Got to be careful about averages. Average is like a person with 1 foot in scalding water and 1 foot in ice water. On the average, he's comfortable, you see. But what does the best professor in a field make? Well, I did some research on it. The best professor is at Columbia University, and he made $4.3 million. Why? Because he has 131 top-tier publications. It's very simple. And here at Ohio State University, we have 8 professors in the $1 million club, in salary alone. That doesn't include patents and consulting and all the kind of other fees. Yes, you can make $1 million a year as a professor. That's not what the average is, but because the market values certain skills, whether factory skills or professor skills, we're going to see inequality get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you know what? Beneke just last week put out a blog saying that the Federal Reserve's policies are causing America to be more unequal every year. And he gets $400,000 every time he gives a speech, which means his opinion is twice as valuable as Mrs. Clinton's opinion, if you look at numbers. If you look at this in terms of the people who earn the income, it is those who have the skills. And it doesn't really mean whether you're... I was in a shop the other day where they repair trucks. What would an auto mechanic or an auto tech, as they're called, make? Well, they start at $20 an hour, and that particular one was starting at $30 an hour, and they pointed to me to a diesel tech who's making this is right here in Columbus, $250,000 a year. I bet there are people in the room with PhDs or JDs who don't make $250,000 a year. Why? Because they don't know how to fix a diesel truck. And they don't know where to get the skill to do it. And truck drivers, one of my former students, is looking for 300 additional trucker drivers right now. Advertising on the local radio station, $80,000 starting salary. You'll make over $100,000 if you're an over-the-road truck driver. You see? Now, why don't people flock to those? And the answer is, would you respect anybody if they told you their son or daughter was going to a trucking school? Or a place where they're going to make $100,000 a year? You see, don't ever, middle-class social class is $20,000 to $122,000, but don't confuse economic class with social class. The average truck driver, average welder will make more than the average public school teacher, but their social class will be different. And that's where we have to get some respect. And if you really want to make a lot of money, you become an entrepreneur. I was talking to a person who repaired my air conditioning the other day. He makes a lot of money. You know what his biggest problem was? Business skills. I have trouble getting the bills taken care of. Accounting, business skills, those are the kinds of things that we need to teach. Do we teach them in our high schools? Do we teach them in apprentice programs? Do we teach them in career colleges? Well, I just present the problem. They're going to present the answers. But I will point out that John Gardner, to paraphrase him one time, when he was Secretary of Health Education, if a nation doesn't respect its plumbers as much as its philosophers, neither the nation's philosophies or plumbing will hold water. So it takes respect. And now I'm going to turn it over to the people who have the answers to the problems we've just talked about.
Thank you, Roger. Well, so quickly to give some time to the panelists and make sure that they have the opportunity to talk on this, engage on this issue, I'm just going to let each one of them go down the line and talk a little bit about the jobs. I mean, this is really, let's talk about the actual job opportunities that are available to individuals with these skilled trade capabilities. So let's just go right down the line here in each one of you. Roger, I'll skip you and I'll do something a little different with you there, but let's go there, okay?
Yeah, one of the things that we see, I'm the superintendent at Tri-Rivers Career Center, and we have the RAMTech Center, the Robotics and Advanced Manufacturing Technology Education Collaborative. Now you know why we shortened it to RAMTech, but we see a real misalignment within the education system. And I think Roger hit on it right there about the social issues. As a lot of you are in here, what would happen tomorrow if your child or grandchild came home and said they were going to attend career tech next year? A lot of you would say, wait, that's where you go if you can't go to college. You don't have the skill set. Because originally that's how it was created, to provide those skill sets for those that weren't going to college. The problem is in 1960, when a lot of the career tech centers were started, only 25% of the jobs required a 4-year degree or more. Folks, today, it's only 30%. It didn't change that much. But what happened was, in 1960, 55% of the jobs required just a high school diploma. Today, it's about 13%. And so I see Steve Dakin in the room with Columbus State. One of the largest growing areas of Columbus State has been people coming back to get a 2-year degree that already have a 4-year degree. They have a degree, they don't have a skill to get a job. And so that's the critical, where's that misalignment happening? And you look at other countries that it's not happening, they value their skilled trades and apprenticeships at a whole different level than what we do here. So that is a big issue. And so 4 years ago when we decided that we were going to change the way, we had an opportunity to reinvest in our manufacturing program. We went to a local business. And the local business was honest with us and said, you're not very good at what you do. And I didn't like that. And they said, I would rather hire someone off the street than hire someone out of your program. And I said, why? And they proceeded to tell me the equipment we were using was out of date or obsolete, And I said, but you donated that to us a couple years ago. Yeah, it was a tax write-off. So they donated it to us. But we weren't using the equipment necessary to get the jobs. So 4 years ago, we made a commitment, and that company made a commitment with us. And we totally redid the way we go about manufacturing education at Tri-Rivers. And that was the start of the Ramtech Center. And so we now have high-tech programs that provide the industry-needed skills and certifications and jobs, and we're working closely with our educational partners to get that done. So I think it's a lot of that. We need to quit talking about college ready, and we need to talk about getting kids career ready. Some careers require a 4-year degree, some a 2-year, some an apprenticeship. We need to change that, because every school around here, and a lot of your kids attend those good schools, that right here in the Franklin County area, you all talk about how many students or what percent are going on to college. What you don't come back and say is what percent finished or graduated in 4 years. And the colleges, they don't want to talk about that either, because the bottom line is some students are misaligned. They go on to college because it's an expectation, and they didn't really have passion about it. And so we need to start to change that, get kids more career ready, and I'm excited about the process that we're doing at the Ramtech Center.
Karen?
So, hi, I'm Karen Breyer, and I'm here on behalf of the Ohio State Medical Center. And our needs are both clinical and non-clinical. So when I received the call and I was told to talk about skilled trades, the first thing that I think folks think about are skilled trades being more the engineering type positions. But in a hospital, we need hundreds and hundreds of non-college degree type positions. So just a few that I'll throw out would be surgical techs. These are the folks helping the physicians have surgery to be completed. These are not college educated individuals. We hire them with a certification or training, and that's all that's required. We cannot find qualified surgical techs. The other entry-level position that is very scarce in the hospitals would be, we'll call them patient support positions. There's many different titles. One could be a medical assistant, which is in the doctor's offices. They're the person that rooms the patients, takes the vitals, does phlebotomy. Again, you do not need a degree for that. We offer training for phlebotomy. Someone here had asked me if I hire phlebotomists, because that is a big need in any clinical setting. We don't per se hire phlebotomists, but we hire many different titles where we'll train you how to do phlebotomy to keep the hospitals going. Some of the other positions, I wrote down a lot because there's a lot of positions that you do not need a degree to be trained or get experience elsewhere and then come into a large hospital system. The issue we have at Ohio State is we have some of the sickest patients around. So many hospitals send their patients to our hospitals, so our acuity rate is very high. So I'll give you an example. If you are an aide in a nursing home, you may not be able to transfer those skills very easily to come into the James Cancer Hospital and treat very ill cancer patients. But we'll train you to do that. We have on-the-job training. It's actually a 2-week training program. It's entry level. Again, the pay range would probably be about $13 an hour, probably up to $16 an hour if you have other experience. Some of the other positions that I wrote down here would be lab techs. Pharmacy techs. So those are very entry level. Again, you can learn this on the job. They're not the pharmacists who must have a PhD. They're not the lab managers or directors who have the college education. They're the doers is what we call them, the workers. So we need a lot of the doers and the workers. I'll just quote that I have probably 1,500 entry-level openings right now across the medical center. The medical center does include 7 hospitals and many primary physician offices, so we are very large, but that is a lot. That's probably double of what I've had in the last year or so. So again, I echo what everyone is saying here. I feel personally the issue starts in middle school and high school. As Chuck had said, we expect our children to go to college. I have 2 in college right now, and I expected them to go to college. One of them to go to Ohio State. One has chosen, one has not. But again, not all positions require a college education. I am interviewing a lot of individuals today that have college degrees, but they have no skills. I talked to a young girl yesterday who graduated from Ohio State with a psychology degree. And she said, a neighbor girl, what can I apply for? I said, well, what's your passion? What are you interested in? I don't know. So I can't really help her until she determines what is the job or career that she would like to pursue. So she has a psychology degree. She's very intelligent. I suggested she look at entry-level positions at our Harding Hospital, which is our mental health hospital. She got all excited.
Harding out in the audience right now.
Okay. She got all excited because we do offer entry-level positions that her psychology degree would blend nicely with, and who knows where she'll end up. So again, I'm here to take questions as well, but there is a great need for this.
Dennis?
Yeah, my name is Dennis Duffy. I represent some 94,000 workers across the state of Ohio engaged in 15 different crafts that all would be necessary to build a facility like this. We have about a 3 to 4% turnover every year in our workforce. So there are some 3,000 to 4,000 apprentice positions available on a yearly basis. There are 86 different training centers across the state that provide the education necessary to be able to perform all the skills necessary to build powerhouses, refineries, office buildings, houses, schools. Basic requirements are a high school education and or a GED and 1 year of algebra. We get a lot of grief from certain segments of society of why would you require 1 year of algebra? You can look around this room and know that to make anything square and plumb, it's all mathematics. How do you figure out how many gallons of paint you need? You better be able to figure out square footage. Everything we do on a daily basis ties to math. Figuring out the circuitry for all this lighting and what it takes is math, 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 math. The problem that we have had in the last 25 years or so, back in the 70s and 80s, we would get some 25 to 30 applicants for each opening. That is probably down to 5 or 6 today, the people that come in with the basic qualifications. We don't lose many once they enter into the apprenticeships. But I can tell you, working outside today in a new building where it's always some form of mugginess is not very comfortable. And if you'd have been here 6 months ago and when it was 4 degrees below zero, that's not very comfortable either. But those are the things that face the people that we represent. It takes, there's not a lot of people that, it's heavy work, it's brutal. By the time you're in your early 50s, your knees are shot, your shoulders are shot, your wrists are gone. Carpal tunnel is prevalent amongst our people. It's a tough business, but it's very rewarding. I think on average, now we instruct our apprentices that from day one, you need to budget 9 months of work a year because we don't have paid vacations, we don't have paid holidays. If you're sick or have to go to the dentist or whatever, you're not paid. If it rains too hard, you're not going to work that day. If it snows, if it's below 5 below zero, you're not going to work. So it's not what you would call a very attractive vocation. However, in my local union, I'm an electrician out of the Toledo area. Our people are leaving today. We have a defined contribution pension plan in that local union. And those that have worked those 9 months a year for the 35 or 36 years of their working career are walking out of there with about $1 million. They've had good health care all along. We provide health care from day one for all of our apprentices. My plea to parents is you can send your student to Ohio State University and incur the debt that the good speaker talked about, or you can send them to us for a 4 or 5 year apprenticeship program. And a 5-year program, on average, our students will earn, our apprentices will earn about $150,000 in that time frame. They'll have health care coverage and end up with $35,000 or $40,000 in their individual pension account. That's very attractive to fathers. It's like take him, and mom saying, no, I want him to go to college. Well, we understand that, but so there is a difference in the perspective. I think it was touched on. Would I rather say my son is a medical doctor or a plumber? Obviously, in this society, and I guess the wages would be a lot different in those two.
Well, the thoracic surgeon is just kind of a plumber.
I like him. He's good. So our advertising here again, we're broke down into 123 different local unions throughout the state. Our contractors, basically 85% of our contractors employ 12 or fewer people. They don't have a marketing and advertising budget. So how do we attract these? That's been an ongoing problem. We're getting closer to finding a solution. Is how do we present ourselves to the general public to tell them that you can come and earn a good wage, feel proud every day when you walk away from a site knowing that I did that. I take my grandchildren by jobs that I worked on today and tell them, I worked on that. I did this, I did that. So there's a lot of pride that goes with our crafts, but it doesn't seem like the youth today is all, and there again, I think that's a societal thing. There isn't the pride in craftsmanship that there once was, or at least when I started in the business 45 years ago. We don't make as many things in this country as we used to, so I don't think when young people engage conversations with neighbors, that's not that Mr. Jones, our neighbor, makes this or he makes that. That's absent in our society today, and as alluded to, it's disappearing on a rapid course. So those are the problems we face, but I think overall we're doing a pretty good job in maintaining our workforce and safety's job one wherever we go. So
good, thanks. Well, let's take some time and take some questions. It's the CMC's tradition to take audience questions. Please step to the microphone. Please give us your name and ask your question. And I'm going to thank you in advance for not making long editorial comments, okay? Got it? All right. Okay, well, thank you very much. First question.
My name is Warren Fishman, and one of the huge advantages of belonging to the Metropolitan Club is you're exposed to so many different forums and so many different topics and so many views. And I try to attend almost every one of them, and I attended one that was talking about liberal arts colleges. And Roger Blackwell made me think when he said that he had an air conditioning guy that was making $150,000 or over $100,000 a year, but couldn't manage billing him correctly, and so on. And chances are that particular air conditioning guy, if he can't bill Roger Blackwell, he probably can't handle his personal finances, and probably make some bad decisions in life. And I wonder, my worry is that I really believe that everything you people have said is correct, but what are we doing in these technical schools to teach people how to make proper decisions for their personal lives, buying houses, billing correctly, their financing, and so on? Thank you.
Chuck, why don't you answer that one?
Well, one of the things we've started to do, some of it was done to us, but financial management had to be added to the curriculum for every high school before a student can graduate. So that's been added to our social studies curriculum, and we make sure we take some time. And then within each of our career tech programs, we have multiple speakers and opportunities. And what we try to do is we have a whole support team of former graduates that will help mentor and support students in this capacity. So we try to work at that. We have adult ed offerings. We work with our local community colleges to make sure that those, but it's one of those things, people don't know that they really need it until they need it. So we look at those students that have that exceptional skill that we think, you know what, they might own their own business someday. And we try to direct them in the right direction and find them a mentor that will do that. So there's some things that we're doing with all students, and then we kind of focus in on individual students as we see those skills arise.
Good. Let's go ahead and do the next question.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Harding. I'm with the Columbus Community Bill of Rights. And I agree with both you, Mr. Spielman and Ms. Karen Breyer. I think these opportunities should be offered to kids at middle school and high school. My son's getting ready to go to college, and he's seen a lot of college fairs for colleges coming in. But I don't think one group has come in that has offered, jobs, training like you offer. And I think if kids realize that these exciting surgical tech, working with robotics, learning how to build, that they just oftentimes don't know about it. So I think that would be an opportunity for you to get into the high schools and middle schools even. And then as a person that's very dedicated to Ohio and keeping Ohio clean and green, I hope that in your training that you develop solar energy and wind energy training so we can develop our infrastructure in green energy. That's at Columbus State or in your business. I don't know who's doing that, but I don't see a big push on that, and that would be really exciting.
Let me bend a little bit of that into a question. How about if we talk about what do you do to go into the high schools to try to get that kind of talent to take notice? And I'll let Karen and Dennis go first if you have any thoughts on that one.
So for Ohio State, we do an awful lot of job fairs. We do go to colleges, mostly colleges though, because again, we're a large hospital system, so we are looking for a lot of educated physicians, nurses, mid-level providers. But we also do all the community events. We work with all the small nonprofits who are in touch with the individuals that are not college educated. We work heavily with the mayor's office. We're working with them right now on a Fast Path program, which is going to offer more training to individuals in the community that don't go to college. So we do a lot of that. We probably don't go to enough schools. So we're asking that the schools come to us and start collaborating and talking more about how we can help them offer more training in school.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next question. Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Wilson. I'm with the Grandview Area Chamber, and I brought with me today several folks from the Grandview City School District because I'm wanting to identify how we can start a program to change the societal challenges that we have with some of these trades. We are pushing college ready instead of career readiness, and we are a particularly small district and affluent, I would say. So changing that is a huge undertaking, and we'd like to know where we start. I met with Kelly with W.W. Williams a couple of weeks ago to start these discussions and figure out how to get this off the ground. So any suggestions would be wonderful, how we get to the middle school level, the high school level, where we start with this.
Chuck, you want to take that one?
Yeah, it kind of is a little follow-up. This isn't a pointing fingers. This is just so you understand the reality. When we go into schools and recruit students, and those students choose to come to Tri-Rivers, that home school loses the funding of that student. So you can see by nature, I know we have some of our state legislature individuals in here, understand the adversarial relationship. As that student chooses to come to Tri-Rivers, that funding all follows the student, which makes logical sense, don't get me wrong. But it makes it a tough situation. When we go into a lot of our schools, they will not give us access to all their students. They will say, these are the students that are not on the college track. You may meet with them. So it is up to the individual schools to choose who we meet with. So that is an issue. And we try, but I can't put that in the paper and go out and say, hey, here's a big problem, because I rely on those schools for the access I do have. So I run evening events, I run different things, but you have to understand the reality is if 30 additional students choose to come to Tri-Rivers, that district's going to lose almost $200,000 in funding. And they have to decide, how do I plug that hole? So you understand the reality. And so the other thing we've done is we've taken the trades programs out of all high schools. We used to have them at middle schools and high schools as electives. We've gutted those because we had to focus so much on testing scores, and because we do sort and select and say, look at this school, how much better they do than this school. Man, maybe we should fire some teachers over here. So that is a reality, and those are once again, college-only measures many times. And so there are some issues that we have, and I want to continue this dialogue. So it is a real problem, but we need a real solution. We don't, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not pointing fingers. It is a reality. How do we figure that out so that students can make those choices and that we can balance that out a little bit? And so some schools are very good about letting me come in, others are not. And it is the reality of what I deal with.
Karen, Dennis?
Yeah, our focus is basically on the vocational side of it. There are still a few vocational schools around the state. There was a model program in Toledo, Ohio up until the early 1980s. It was Macomber High School. And for you Ohio State basketball fans, the home of Jim Jackson. And that school had a program that basically put students in competition from their first day in high school. And the competition was when you got to be a junior and you were either in the automobile field or the construction trades, printing trades, or whatever, based on your scholastic achievement up through your freshman and sophomore year and your attendance in school, there were different companies throughout the community that would hire these young people, and you got the job opportunities based on your past performance. So the competition against your fellow students was there from day one. You went to work for 40 hours a week in these facilities, you made good money. Those were the guys that had the fancy cars, and young girls like guys with fancy cars, so a lot of competition there. And those young people worked through their junior and senior year at a lot of the automobile dealers as mechanics, as body people, auto electricity, welders, electricians, plumbers, sheet metal workers, printers, draftsmen, went to work for the architectural engineering firms. And many of the people that taught me my trade, probably 95% of them, came out of that school. We no longer have that, although we have a agreements with 4 vocational schools in Northwest Ohio, 1 in Southeast Michigan, where we have replicated that program to about 8% of what it was. So trying to get the folks is very difficult because they're going to we don't get a lot of work.
And guidance counselors in high schools all across the state that we should be permitted as a trade school to come in and talk with students. We visit nearly 300 high schools, so this is really more a comment and asking people in the room, you need to be talking with your guidance counselors and saying there is so much more available. My training programs are less than 1 year of college, and my incomes will rival many, many college individuals, as Dr. Blackwell has mentioned. So I understand perfectly what you're saying, because we're not permitted in many, many high schools in order to talk about the kinds of careers that we and many other trade schools offer, because it is perceived that it is. Cosmetology is the right way to go, but college is the right way for everybody to go. So, thank you.
Roger, we're going to make a comment on those issues.
Well, I talked to a superintendent of school in the area. I don't want to identify which one, and he told me that, I said, are you doing much in the schools to prepare people for jobs and looking at alternative careers and so forth? He said, no, you teach what you get graded for, and we don't get graded for getting people jobs.
Well, the issue is a challenge, and we understand it. I think it's great for CMC to give a forum to have this kind of discussion. Not a lot of answers, a lot of opportunities, though. I will tell you from the chamber standpoint, we have been working with some of our area high schools with those students that are not immediately going to college to try to get them pipelined into some of our companies, our businesses. This issue is becoming more and more acute, and it's one that we're going to have to find a way to find our way through. So again, I'm sorry.
say that this book on inequality came out just 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's the best one out. Don't waste your time on Piketty's book. And I can recommend another one too. But and last week, The Economist had a great report on exactly this topic. And it's very, very relevant. And I love the comment here. It's going to affect family life dramatically. Women who enjoy much greater economic autonomy than their grandmothers did can now afford to be correspondingly pickier about spouses. And they're not thrilled by husbands who are just another mouth to feed.
Wow, so there's our last word, okay? So take that home with you, all right? Mindy, I will turn it back over to you. Thank you very much.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed today's forum. Remember that you can view and share all of our forums on CTV Columbus Television, on WOSU and PBS affiliates statewide through the Ohio Channel, and anytime on CMC's website via YouTube. Before we conclude, please help me thank our sponsor, Honda of America Manufacturing, and our speakers, Roger Blackwell, Charles A. Spielman, Dennis Duffy, Karen Breyer, and Michael Dalby. And thanks to all of you for being here. We look forward to seeing you back here soon.